Okay, mantra 2. The knowledge of Brahman that Brahma imparted to Arthavan, Arthavan passed that on to Angiraha in days of yore. Angiraha passed it on to Satyavaha, a descendant of Bharadvaja. The descendant of Bharadvaja handed down to Angirasa this knowledge in succession. Okay, so what have we got here? What's the point of this? Why are we hearing this? It's a little bit like in the Old Testament. Ahab begat this person began that person began that person. You see a lineage. Why is that? It ends up with, say, King David. And you can see that King David, who is a powerful figure in the mythology, isn't just some random person who walked out of the streets. They have this lineage associated with them. There is a concept in Māori culture here in New Zealand of mana. And you can think of mana as an internal integrity that allows you to influence others. And mythologically, it starts with the gods. The gods bestow mana. And if the gods bestow mana upon this chief beget this son, and this son beget this son for generations down, and I am the descendant. And so that mana is seen to pass through the lineage, unbroken, pure, to myself. And so now I have the right to speak because I am part of that unbroken lineage. So in a similar way, we've got an unbroken lineage here, master to disciple. What does this do? Well, as we were touching on earlier, it can promote devotion in the listener. And this will depend upon your temperament. For some, it's like, okay, great story. What is this knowledge they're talking about? For others, they may be much more interested in really feeling that lineage, especially if there is an association with the culture and the history such that these names mean something to you. To someone who's not from the Indian culture or doesn't have an association with it, they're just names. And one of the examples the Swami used to give was to talk about the founding fathers in the United States. And you hear those names and it moves your emotions, it moves your heart. There's something there. And you think about the project of starting a new country, severing ties with the tyrannical English king, and starting something brand new on a set of principles of equality, etc. Those great men who did this, they mean something to the American mind. So there is a devotional aspect in presenting this lineage. There's an authenticity. In the commentary he talks about this. There are different ways of gaining knowledge. One of the ways of gaining knowledge is through tradition. And so if you hear something from a teacher and you know that that teacher was part of a genuine lineage right the way back to some starting point, then you have a degree of faith and trust in that message that you wouldn't have otherwise. It's a little bit like social proof. If you go onto YouTube and you want to learn how to write a piece of music that has a key change, you put it into the search bar and there's a video that comes up 2.5 million views, another video that comes up 2,500 views. Which one are you going to watch? 2.5 million. Why? Because the social proof is there. Now, the one with 2,500 views might actually be better. But once you see that there's 2.5 million people who viewed that video, something changes in your mind. You become more receptive more open, more willing to listen. So Shaunaka is the protagonist of this particular story. He's the one who approaches Angirasa. What's also interesting is to look at this from a more meta perspective, because the narrator is describing the meeting of Shaunaka and Angirasa. So you have a narration of this conversation, and that narration is being read by you. So you're part of the lineage. Where did it begin? Lord Brahma, the first of the gods. And again, depending upon your temperament, depending upon your cultural mindset, when you feel that you're connected somehow through this lineage to Lord Brahma, what does it do for your psychology? What does it do for your mindset? There's also another interesting aspect here, because Shaunaka and Angirasa, they're human beings who purportedly lived here on this very same earth that you are currently occupying. Householder. But the origin of this knowledge is Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is a mythological creature. So how did it go from a mythological god to his progeny, and then through the lineage to me? Somewhere along the line, you have to accept, if you're approaching this from the intellectual perspective, that there was no Lord Brahma speaking this to his son. It doesn't make any sense, or at least there's certainly no proof to accept it. Where did it begin? Where does any of your knowledge begin? When you try to go to the source of your knowledge, the stuff that you know, that you can think about and talk about and experience, it gets murky, it gets dark, and you can't see the beginning. It appears to not have a beginning at all. When did your dream begin? Where did it come from? The house that you're sitting in your dream, what's its beginning? What's its source? Well, it's something outside the dream. This lineage, where did it begin? Some murky depths. In a sense, this lineage that we're talking about can be seen as representing knowledge per se. It's here right now with me. The book is right here with me. I'm reading this text, being narrated by the narrator about Shaunaka and Angirasa. But where did this chain of knowledge start? I have no idea. I'm eating this orange. I can taste it. I can feel it. It's dripping down my throat, dripping down my chin. Where did this experience come from? What's its origin? It's too murky to understand.